Welcome to Knowledge Miles, the Lord Mayor's Lectures. I am Professor Jim Connell, Chairman of the Gresham Society, and I'm honoured to have here with us today the 695th Lord Mayor of the City of London, Alderman Professor Michael Mainelli. Michael, it's been 6 months now since you became Lord Mayor. Can you tell us about some of the highlights to date?
Well, thank you, Tim, and it's a pleasure to be here with the Knowledge Miles community. Yes, we're just over the halfway mark, six months, just 2 weeks ago, and it has been very exciting and basically very fun. I maintain everybody should be Lord Mayor for a year. Now, as you know, Tim, the Connect to Prosper initiative has got 6 various sub-initiatives to it, and they're going like a freight train, and I'll knock off 4 of them fairly quickly. Galanos, our mental health research project, with Oxford University, MQ Mental Health and the Wellcome Trust going very well. We're having a celebratory dinner just later this week. It's reached out into 70 countries, going fine, and it is improving the quality and speed of mental health research. Second thing we have is constructing science. This has been a push with the construction industry for a standard to convert Category B offices into life sciences laboratories. That too is fine. We're seeing planning applications coming through from across London, and 4 cities worldwide have said that they'd like to copy it, which is fine. It's very much an open standard. We have our Smart Economies Networks initiatives with three groups comprising about 30 organizations doing 4 trials on pension fund administration, credit referencing, exchange-traded funds, and it's what they're trying to do is to show that the X-Road system can work for Britain and beyond. So all that is going well. And then, of course, one could have an entire interview and more on what we do in green finance. But we just held 2 days ago the Net Zero Delivery Summit between the 2 COPs, where I was emphasizing the importance of carbon pricing, the sovereign sustainability-linked bonds, and most recently, the fact that the insurance industry has begun just in the last 4 months insuring voluntary carbon credits, giving them real credibility. So those are 4 initiatives out there. But the 2 I might focus on are our Space Protection Initiative.
Yes.
And just last night at the Space and Innovation Banquet, if I look a little exhausted, it's because we enjoyed partying too much. We were thrilled to have Professor Michael Mainelli there. Michael is a senior advisor to the Saudis and UAE, but also the senior science advisor to the Commonwealth. And she announced that all 56 nations of the Commonwealth have come behind our Space Protection Initiative, which is to encourage the use of space debris removal insurance bonds, SPADRIBs, as Charles Vermont calls them. Yes. Charles is the chairman of the program, as the means really to stop the space junk problem increasing. So that's been an enormous win. And the 6th category is what has been termed the 695th Lord Mayor's Ethical AI Initiative. And that comprises 2 parts. The first is an online course that we created the syllabus for last year. The syllabus was donated freely to the Chartered Institute for Securities and Investment, CISI, the Certified Accountants, that's the ACCA, and the British Computer Society, the BCS. The 3 of these are now offering these courses since the 10th of November last year. We have plans as well to roll out to several other professional organizations and societies who are in train, and 85 business schools. So all is going very, very well. But even in the 6 months that it's been going, the 3 offers have had over 5,000 people take the course in over 50 countries, in over 500 organizations. It's going well. It is only a 1-day course, but these are invigilated, tested courses where you get a certificate from the Institute. And what it teaches you is the use of ISO standards in AI, particularly ISO 42001. Gives you an ethical framework for making decisions around new technologies and a methodology for deploying new technology safely. So that was one module. The second module was much more corporate, and we concluded just 3 weeks ago, yesterday, in Brussels, what's called the Walbrook AI Accord, 30 nations in Brussels signed an agreement with this address saying that they would be promoting the use of ISO 42001 in preference to national regulation. So really using the international standards markets for sort of the horizontal regulation of artificial intelligence rather than piecemeal, the same way that we do food safety or the maritime sector or the aviation sector. So a lot of initiatives going on, I'm afraid.
Well, this is all very exciting. It makes me smile because, of course, here you are as the Lord Mayor of the City of London, and you're mentioning 50 countries here and 30 countries there and 4 overseas cities. You've done quite a lot of travel as well. What about your travelling so far this year?
Whoa, well, yeah, travel has been intrepid. I was just doing a count the other day, and I am up to 58 days of travel abroad. In 6 months, you begin to wonder, are you actually mayor of the city? And I've visited 14 countries, so I won't try and name them all, but it's been China, Japan, Singapore, in the Far East, India.
You might have been to America once or twice.
Twice to the States. India was an absolutely fascinating week. Italy for a week. Ireland, Switzerland, etc. UAE. It's just been copious travel. But very, very fun, and it is, in fact, those trips that allow me to sort of fly the power of an independent city-state, doing its thing internationally, but also really to try and bring mandates to Britain to get things done and to show London, as I said in the very first interview, very much as the world's coffeehouse, a place where people come together for global solutions like space debris or the management of AI. So all that has been going well, and the access you get as Lord Mayor is superb. I have genuinely been pleased with the inordinately warm receptions we get representing London, and the access. Time with the Vice President Han in China, senior ministers in Singapore, Japan, America. You really do have access to make a difference.
So you're not so much putting the City of London on the map as keeping it absolutely bang in the middle.
Yeah, I've often said to people, I don't know why we need to advertise. Every geography teacher in the world does our work for us from the age of 4 or 5. So our job is really to make those connections that help us prosper.
It's that longitude going through Greenwich which always helps, isn't it?
Yes, it does. Yes, it
Of course, you mentioned the World's Coffeehouse. What about the coffee colloquies? That's another international element in your year, isn't it?
It is. And the coffee colloquies and the knowledge miles have been really a great, quiet success. I say quiet merely that they just go along very, very smoothly. But they've been building in quality and tone, and I get frequent emails from people about how great it was to make these connections, this or that, whether it's things they didn't know about, people they should be working with, funding, risks they should avoid. So I've got down here, we've had 79 lectures of the 100 have been scheduled, so I'm pretty sure we'll just nudge over that 100 mark I set as the target, although it was easily achieved, of which 40 of those have been delivered. So there's a lot for the viewers to see online. Over 40% of it is now up and running. And we've had over 50,000 people going to view these and have a look at them. So enormously popular and doing what I'd hoped, which is to show the intellectual nuggets in our city, those knowledge miles as well. The coffee colloquies, we scheduled 25 of them, and we have held 11 of them. At the core are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and then there's another 8 on topics that I'm interested in, as well as a kind of an opening and a closing one. So that series has gone extremely well. We've had attendance anywhere from about 85 or 90 here at Mansion House on up to 180, depending on the topic and the size. And the format, which is sort of speed dating, 10 people get 4 minutes and that's it. And we are ruthless. And then there's a half an hour of networking, so it's a 2-hour format. Has been great at showing off what London can do in terms of problem solving.
Now, there's also the element of doing good works in all of this. What about the charitable side? I mean, the Lord Mayor is always seen as being a focal point for charities of the City of London. How are you getting on with that?
Well, we're doing well. I'd reference really 3 things. The first is the Lord Mayor has, of course, the Lord Mayor's appeal. and the Lord Mayor's appeal is about fairness, inclusiveness, safety, and health in our city. We have 3 charities involved. One is a homeless charity, one is a numeracy charity, and of course the charity I'm sponsoring this year is MQ Mental Health, which, as I said earlier, is very much involved in the Galanos project. So that's been going well. Tomorrow morning, bright and early, Elizabeth and I will be abseiling to raise funds for the Lord Mayor's appeal. Elizabeth's never abseiled before, and to make it easy for her, I just keep calling it the jump. And it works, because every time I call it the jump, she jumps. But anyway, even I am a bit scared, because we're going down the cheese grater, all 200 meters of it. So it's a bit frightening. I rode around the city on my trusty steed Leo to raise money as well, and folks are welcome to give. And next week we're holding the Bavarian Ball. Now, those of you who know Bavaria well will know that Elizabeth comes from there, and they don't really have balls, so we're making it up as we go along. But it definitely involves dirndl and lederhosen and singing. Then the second charity that we're working with quite closely is the Lord Mayor's Big Curry Lunch. That was held last month, and we had over 2,000 people going through the Guildhall doing it, and we also have a Lord Mayor's Big Curry Masala. I should have it here to show you, but you can imagine it, that you can buy online. We've raised just over £400,000 so far, and I'm hoping we can hit the $500,000 mark. And that goes to service men and service women who need assistance, particularly in mental health terms. And then finally, we put up a special one this year because of the theme and the science. I've always been soft on Christ Hospital, which used to be a city school but moved down in the very late 1800s to Horsham in Surrey. You'll recognize this. This is a school of 800, mostly disadvantaged students who wear the Tudor blue uniform, that heavy woolen uniform with glaring yellow socks. But they come, the vast majority, from the inner city, so it's not an independent school as most people think. Over 80% of the students are on bursary. Over 50% are given more than 50%, and over 20% are wholly paid for by the school, which has been going, really since the time of King Edward IV in the mid-1500s. But what makes that school special this year is, despite all the other good works that it does, it is the home to the Royal Mathematical School, which was set up to aid navigation and mathematics, obviously, by the likes of Christopher Wren and Isaac Newton. And so we thought this year we'd try and raise 2 bursaries. I wouldn't say it's been easy, but we are well over the £500,000 mark. And I guess I've set myself a goal to see if we can make the £1 million mark by the end of the year. But we already have 2 full bursaries funded for this, and it'd just be nice to get to 4. So that's kind of, the charitable program is big, and there's a lot more to come. And we are helping some other smaller charities, Sea Change Sailing Trust, which teaches young people fortitude by making them do an actual delivery on a sailing vessel without a motor. And there are a lot of other projects out there, but those would be the 3 big ones.
Yes, I always like to remind people you're the Admiral of the Port of London as well as being Lord Mayor, so there's always a nautical element, I think, in all of this.
Well, that brings us nicely to experiments, yes. Where I might point out, during the year we planned to host a series of different experiments. We concluded one in 22 Bishopsgate, which is the highest skyscraper in the city of London. And that was, we recreated Einstein's 2-clock time dilation experiment inside a skyscraper, not using mountaintops, not using satellites, so scientifically interesting. But of course, the entire city runs on that hyper-precision time from the National Physical Laboratory, who lent us the clocks for the experiment. But a second experiment I'll be greeting tomorrow. It set off 3 weeks ago. There's a wonderful, charming, and engaging man, Jeff Holt, who happens to be a paraplegic, and he set off to go around Britain and raise funds for wet wheels, but at the same time do an experiment. And he has covered over 1,500 miles, and he arrives back at base tomorrow at St. Catherine's Dock, where I hope to greet him. But what Jeff has done along the way is to sample the actual situation of microplastic pollution all around the British coast. So that's fun. And then looking ahead, this month we've wrapped 300 meters of fiber optic cable inside the staircase at the monument, and we hope to see the vibrations and measure them. These are the same vibrations that somewhat undermined Hook and Wren's pretensions, their aspirations to turn the monument into a laboratory, which is why it was built in the late 1600s. So the experimental series is going well, and in the case of Jeff Holt, also very much helping charity.
Well, of course, it's interesting because everybody thinks of the City of London as being a centre for finance and business, but you've pointed out before that there are more organisations related, in fact, to science and technology linked to London than there are finance and business. So an interesting thing coming back to the Knowledge Miles is actually the range of topics. Again, people rather wondered whether we were just sort of plugging the banking and the finance and that sort of sector. And it's worth bearing in mind that we've covered a lot of other topics. AI is obviously a very topical one, but then we've got law, the environment, charity, architecture, all sorts of other items as well. What was your sort of, do you have a favourite amongst the topics that we've covered?
Oh, I shouldn't.
It's an unfair question.
They've all been incredible, and I think it just shows what I'd hoped it would show, which is just the incredible intellectual vibrancy of London. But maybe to tease out some for the audience, I would probably, the Worshipful Company of Firefighters had Phil Clark, and he was talking about the growing risks of lithium-ion batteries. So, that was direct kind of in-the-home sort of problems. Coincides, oddly, with, I had a bicycle law enforcement day where we actually stopped several of these scooters which were unlicensed. People had taken off the regulators, but that's another story. But he was there focused on lithium-ion batteries. And then, of course, Sir Nigel Shadbolt, who's principal of Jesus College, and you mentioned the AI lecture. Of course, that accords very closely with the AI initiative. So lots out there. Thrilled to see more coming.
But of course, one thing to stress is although the topics might look as if they're rather specialised, we do ask the speakers in particular that they speak towards the general audience, so there's something there for everybody. And I think the important thing as well is that the quality of the questions coming up has been very good, and those are available. If you go onto the Gresham Society website, you go onto knowledgemiles.net, you actually get the full lecture and the questions and answers which come back afterwards. And we're getting some very specialised questions, as well as sometimes you get a very simple question which turns out to be very hard to answer. So that I think has been quite a nice element of the programme. Another key part of this, of course, is that you wanted to emphasise the livery companies as much as possible. How have you got on with the livery companies this year?
Well, we've gotten on extraordinarily well with livery companies. Mind you, that's not hard. They're just wonderful groups. And we've had enormous support from my mother livery company, the World Traders, who have been of assistance on a whole variety of things, including the Smart Economy Networks, which are about trade. There's a livery I'm not a member of, which is the Worshipful Company of Information Technologists, who've clearly been helping with AI. They created an AR/VR application for the Lord Mayor's show, which had balloons over it. They are also participating in the Smart Economy Networks and also helping me with the Wayfinder app called Veracity, which is going out into major trial later this month, when we're going to have several hundred liverymen wandering around the city trying to find their way on Veracity. So the livery companies have been great. As a reminder, we've got 111 livery companies, and you're welcome to join them. And there are also 23 board clubs, which is a lesser commitment and equally fun. But of the 111, I think we're up to nearly half of them have provided or scheduled a lecture. But I would emphasize it's not just about the livery. It was open to the full intellectual life of London. And I was noticing here we've got the Francis Crick Institute, the Royal Society, the Athenaeum Club, the Royal Society of Arts, National Preparedness Commission, etc., and a lot of businesses. So it's been a very, very rich series.
We've been very lucky, I think, from the organisational point of view, the amount of interest we've had from various organisations, and people either offering a topic or asking if they can actually join in, which means we're almost full now, right the way through to November.
Yes, I know, and I want to squeeze some more in, and you'll
Yeah, I
probably
thought you
tell me
might.
no. I'm always greedy, I'm afraid, but it has been a really, really good half year. And I did a checkpoint here a few weeks ago before the half year mark with the Mansion House staff, and honestly, things are all on schedule. It's enormously fun. I'm looking forward to more travel. I get to spend almost all of June here, bar a quick 3-day trip to the Channel Islands. I think I need a little bit of rest in that regard. We plow on. We shut Mansion House down for all of August, which is probably, I think, a good thing. And then we'll come back for a roaring 2.5 months before I hand over to my successor on the 8th of November.
What happens, it's a broad sort of question, once you stand down as Lord Mayor, all these initiatives that you started, what actually happens to them?
Well, that's a good question. I stepped down from my work at Zien on sabbatical in June 2022. In other words, taking 2.5 months out. And a big plug, Zien is not getting paid for any of this, nor am I. So it's our commitment to the city that a small firm has been prepared to donate a senior person's time for, it turned out to be 2 years as sheriff rather than 1, and 2.5 years as Lord Mayor. So I'm going to go roaring back into Zien, so don't forget that. But in terms of the projects, well, each one of the 6 major initiatives is somebody really now in charge as chairman and running it. So I'm pretty comfortable that they will keep going. Galanos is now very independent. Constructing Science is very independent. Smart Economies Networks is at the moment more of a research project that will come to an end, although we do think there are operational elements that might follow from it. The Space Protection Initiative, I have to think about how we're going to handle that. The AI initiative, already the teams involved in that are planning out how it goes, not just widening the reach into other entities, 85 business schools, but also how do they develop a C-suite, senior executive course, how do they move out into other areas of AI training. So, a lot going on there. And then on green finance, we launched our city carbon credit cancellation service, which will probably be the legacy. We launched that 2 months ago, and that allows people to go on the real ETS markets and purchase a real carbon credit that is clearly not a scam or a problem and cancel it. And we're using that to highlight some of the issues with the voluntary carbon credit market and help to improve it, but also to give people real choice. So a lot happening that will continue without. But as an alderman, you make a commitment to stick around for another 6 years if you can, and see your projects through. So, and we also have another tradition which gives me a bit of relief. It's called PERDA. PERDA is 2 parts. Just before you take office, for approximately a month, you stay out of city affairs. It doesn't mean you don't work, but you stay out of city affairs to let the existing Lord Mayor keep running without distraction. And then when you step down, you actually exit the city between the second weekend in November and what we call the Easter banquet, which is near Easter. So for nearly 6 months, you'll be out of the city to let your successor have a free reign. So during that period, I'll be quietly nudging these things along from the sidelines, but we'll come back in probably next May and pick up a couple of them and keep championing them. Naturally, I'm working with my successors to ensure that they see where the linkages are. In fact, we had a meeting this morning on just that topic. Michael, how can we help keep some of these going? Whilst we also want to do our own program. So it's a very collegiate group, the 25 aldermen.
Excellent. Now, to round off, I'd like to remind everybody that these lectures are taking place at 11 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. You can find the details either going through the Gresham Society website at greshamsociety.org, or you can go to the knowledgemiles.net and you'll find all the information there. Michael, I would like to thank you very much indeed for your time and explaining everything that's going on. Tremendous amount of things for us to look at, and of course this underlines the Lord Mayor's Year, which of course is Connect to Prosper. So thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing everything else that you do during your year.
Well, thank you,
Thank
Tim.
you, Michael.
Thank you all.